Welcome to the Binge Eating Reset. You've now reached video 23. In the previous video, you discovered that underneath the urge to eat, there's often something completely different going on than actual hunger. You learned that you can ask yourself, what do I actually really need right now? Maybe what you needed was some rest. Maybe you needed some comfort. Maybe you needed some distraction. Maybe you simply needed someone to listen to you for a moment. And maybe you've actually tried that exercise over the past few days. Maybe you discovered that food itself was never really the actual problem. But today, I want to talk to you about something that's very closely connected to that. Because even when you discover what it is that you really need, you can still end up getting in your own way. Not because of what you eat, but because of the way you talk to yourself. And that often happens so automatically, that you don't even realize you're doing it anymore. Just stop and think about that for a moment. How do you actually talk to yourself? Not on the good days, but especially on those difficult days. Those moments when you ended up eating anyway, when you had a binge, or when you did something that made you think afterwards, why did I do that again? What kind of voice do you hear in your head then? A lot of people say things like, see? There you go again. I just don't have any discipline. I'm weak. I always ruin everything. I'm never going to learn. And maybe you recognize some of that in yourself too. Maybe you don't actually say those words out loud, but you do say them inside your head. And the more often you do that, the more normal those words start to feel. Eventually, they can even start to feel as if they're simply the truth. But let me ask you something. Imagine your best friend calls you. She's had a really difficult day. A lot of stress. Maybe she had an argument. Maybe she's feeling sad, and afterwards, she ended up eating an entire bag of chips. Or a whole pack of cookies. Or maybe she just kept eating, even though she was already completely full. What would you say to her? Would you say, "You're so weak. You don't have any discipline at all. You always ruin everything"? Probably not. You'd probably say something like, "It's okay. You've had a really difficult day. Tomorrow is a new day and a new chance. I understand why this happened." You would show her some understanding. You wouldn't tear her down. You would actually try to help her get back up again. And now we come to what might be the most important question of today. Why don't you give yourself that exact same kindness? Why are we so often much kinder and more understanding toward someone else than we are toward ourselves? When you really think about it, that's actually pretty strange. Because you're the person who has to live with yourself every single day. You're the person who gets up again every single morning. You're the person who keeps trying again, even after another difficult day. And yet so many people treat themselves as if they're their own worst enemy. And that has consequences, much bigger consequences than you might realize. Because just imagine for a moment that someone was following you around all day long, watching everything you do, and every single time you make a mistake, that person says, "See? There you go again. You're worthless. You can't do anything right. Why do you even bother trying?" How would that make you feel? Probably small, tired, sad, maybe even completely hopeless. And it's exactly in moments like that the need for comfort often starts to grow again. And where do so many people look for comfort? In food. Can you see how that cycle starts to develop? You eat, you feel guilty, you get angry with yourself. You start feeling even worse. And because of that, you start feeling the urge to eat all over again. Not because your body is actually asking you for food, but because you're trying to soothe the emotional pain you're feeling. And that is exactly why self-compassion is so important. Self-compassion doesn't mean that you have to pretend everything you do is perfectly fine. It doesn't mean saying, "Oh well, whatever. I'll just do whatever I feel like doing." That's not self-compassion. Self-compassion means being willing to honestly look at what happened, without completely tearing yourself apart because of it. You can absolutely say, "That wasn't the choice I wanted to make." And at the same time, "I'm still a valuable person." Those two things can absolutely exist at the same time. You don't have to tear yourself down first, in order to change something. In fact, it's actually the opposite. Research shows that people who treat themselves with more kindness find it much easier to recover after a setback. They spend less time getting stuck in feelings of guilt. They get back to their healthy habits more quickly. And they're less likely to completely give up. That might sound a little strange, because a lot of people grew up believing that being hard on yourself actually helps. That sometimes you just need to give yourself a good kick in the butt. That you need to really give yourself a good talking to. But think back over your own life for a moment. Has that really worked? Has criticizing and putting yourself down actually helped you change for good? Or did it mostly make you feel even more unhappy? For a lot of people, it's actually the second one. And that's why I want to practice something really simple with you today. Maybe it'll feel a little strange at first. Maybe it'll even feel a little uncomfortable. But just give it a try anyway. The next time you notice that you're judging yourself, just stop for a moment. Take a slow, calm breath. And ask yourself one simple question. What would I say to my best friend right now? Maybe you would say, you really are doing your best. You don't have to be perfect. One difficult moment doesn't say anything about who you are. You're allowed to start again. And now comes the most important part. Say those exact same words to yourself. Not just silently inside your head, but actually say them out loud. Yes, really, out loud. Because the words you actually say out loud can often have a much stronger impact than the words that only stay inside your head. And maybe you don't completely believe yourself yet. That's okay. New beliefs almost always feel a little unfamiliar at first. That doesn't mean they aren't true. It simply means that you're learning something new. Just like when you once learned how to ride a bike, or learned how to drive a car. That probably felt strange in the beginning too. But by practicing it again and again, it gradually started to feel more normal. And this works in exactly the same way. Every single time you speak to yourself with a little more kindness, you're literally creating a new pathway in your brain. A pathway where making a mistake is no longer proof that you've failed, but simply another opportunity to make a different choice. And do you know what might be the best part of all of this? You don't have to lose 10 kilos first. You don't have to eat perfectly first. You don't have to prove that you're worthy first. You're already worthy right now. Especially on the days when things feel difficult. Especially on the days when things don't go the way you wanted. Especially then. So remember this one sentence today. It might actually be the most important sentence in this entire video. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to someone you truly love. Not because you should feel sorry for yourself, but because treating yourself that way gives you the best possible chance to actually change. Not through fighting yourself, but through understanding yourself. Not through punishment, but through care. And believe me, that isn't a sign of weakness. That is real strength. Thank you so much for watching again today. I really hope you'll practice today's exercise over the next few days. Because sometimes, just one kind sentence to yourself can make all the difference between giving up and starting again. In the next video, we're going to take this one step further. Because maybe you're still thinking, but if I'm not hard on myself, how am I ever going to change? And that is exactly what we're going to talk about. Why being hard on yourself can actually work against you. I'd love to see you again in Binge Eating Reset number 24.